Question 1. Upon reviewing the proposed implementation of Cisco SecureX for automating threat response workflows, which of the following initial steps is most critical to ensure compliance with U.S. cybersecurity best practices and regulatory expectations for risk management? Option A. Focus solely on the efficiency gains promised by Cisco SecureX, deferring any risk analysis until after initial deployment. Option B. Immediately deploy Cisco SecureX and rely on its built-in security features to manage risks. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities and impacts associated with the automation of these security workflows. Option D. Begin training security personnel on the advanced features of Cisco SecureX without a formal risk assessment. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities and impacts associated with the automation of these security workflows. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the organization is implementing new automation technologies without a foundational understanding of their associated risks. This oversight can lead to significant security vulnerabilities, compliance failures, and operational disruptions. The pressure to adopt new technologies quickly can sometimes overshadow the critical need for a thorough risk assessment, making careful judgment and adherence to established processes paramount. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented risk assessment before full deployment. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology adoption and the general regulatory expectation, within the U.S. framework applicable to Cisco SAUTO, that organizations proactively identify, analyze, and mitigate potential threats. A formal risk assessment process ensures that the organization understands the potential impact of vulnerabilities introduced by automation, such as misconfigurations, unauthorized access, or data breaches, and can implement appropriate controls. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining security posture and demonstrating due diligence. An incorrect approach that bypasses a formal risk assessment fails to meet regulatory expectations for due diligence and risk management. Specifically, it could violate principles of the NIST cybersecurity framework, which emphasizes risk assessment as a foundational activity. Deploying automation without understanding its risk profile can lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations, e.g., HIPAA if healthcare data is involved, or PCI DSS if payment card data is processed, due to potential security gaps. Ethically, it represents a failure to protect organizational assets and stakeholder data. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on vendor-provided security features without independent validation is also professionally unacceptable. While vendors provide security measures, they are not a substitute for an organization's own risk assessment. This approach neglects the unique threat landscape and specific configurations of the organization's environment, potentially leaving critical vulnerabilities unaddressed. It demonstrates a lack of independent verification and can lead to a false sense of security, increasing the likelihood of a security incident and subsequent regulatory scrutiny. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the scope of the automation project and the systems it will impact. 2. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their impact. This should include considering the specific automation tools and their integration points. 3. Evaluate existing controls and determine the residual risk. 4. Develop and implement mitigation strategies for identified risks, prioritizing those with the highest impact and likelihood. 5. Document the entire process, including the risk assessment findings, mitigation plans, and any residual risks accepted. 6. Obtain necessary approvals and ensure ongoing monitoring and review of the automated systems and their associated risks. Question 2. The control framework reveals that the organization is prioritizing the automation of security incident response capabilities to reduce detection and remediation times. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for implementing these automated solutions? Option A. Focus solely on automating the technical aspects of incident response, such as log collection and alert correlation, without considering the broader business impact or data privacy implications. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify critical assets, potential threats, vulnerabilities, and the potential impact of security incidents before designing and deploying automated response mechanisms. Option C. Implement automated response tools that prioritize speed over accuracy, assuming that any automated action is better than no action during an incident. Option D. Immediately deploy automated response playbooks based on common threat intelligence feeds to ensure rapid action against known attack vectors. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify critical assets, potential threats, vulnerabilities, and the potential impact of security incidents before designing and deploying automated response mechanisms. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity automation, balancing the need for rapid threat response with the imperative to maintain compliance and avoid unintended consequences. The pressure to automate security controls, especially in the face of evolving threats, can lead to hasty decisions. Without a thorough risk assessment, automated solutions might inadvertently create new vulnerabilities, violate data privacy regulations, or disrupt critical business operations. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that automation enhances security posture without compromising regulatory adherence or operational stability. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment that directly informs the design and implementation of automated security solutions. This aligns with best practices mandated by various regulatory frameworks that require organizations to identify, assess, and treat risks to information assets. Specifically, within the context of U.S. regulations relevant to cybersecurity, e.g., NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which is often a guiding principle for SAUTO exam content. A risk-based approach is fundamental. This means understanding the potential threats, vulnerabilities, and the impact of a security incident before automating controls. The assessment should consider the likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the potential business impact, thereby prioritizing automation efforts on the most critical risks. This ensures that automated solutions are targeted, effective, and compliant with legal and ethical obligations, such as protecting sensitive data and ensuring system availability. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing automation without a preceding risk assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses the fundamental requirement of understanding and managing risks, which is a cornerstone of most cybersecurity regulations. This approach can lead to 1. Violation of data privacy laws. Automating data handling or access controls without understanding the data's sensitivity and regulatory requirements, e.g., HIPAA, CCPA, could result in unauthorized disclosure or improper processing of protected information. 2. Inadequate security posture. Automating controls that do not address the most significant threats or vulnerabilities leaves the organization exposed to high-impact incidents. This demonstrates a failure to exercise due diligence in protecting information assets. 3. Operational disruption. Automating processes without assessing their impact on business operations can lead to system downtime, data corruption, or loss of productivity, which can have financial and reputational consequences and potentially violate service-level agreements or contractual obligations. 4. Noncompliance with audit requirements. Regulatory bodies often require documented risk assessments as evidence of a robust security program. Proceeding without one makes it impossible to demonstrate compliance during audits. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-driven methodology for all security automation initiatives. This involves 1. Threat and vulnerability identification. Continuously identify potential threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the organization's assets and operations. 2. Risk analysis. Assess the likelihood and impact of identified threats exploiting vulnerabilities. 3. Risk evaluation. Prioritize risks based on their potential severity and the organization's risk appetite. 4. Risk treatment. Select appropriate controls, including automation, to mitigate, transfer, accept, or avoid risks. This selection must be informed by the risk evaluation. 5. Monitoring and review. Regularly review the effectiveness of automated controls and reassess risks as the threat landscape and business environment evolve. This structured approach ensures that automation efforts are strategic, compliant, and contribute effectively to the overall security posture. Question 3. Examination of the data shows that a financial services organization is seeking to automate its risk assessment process to improve efficiency and response times. The organization handles sensitive customer data and is subject to stringent financial regulations. Which of the following automated approaches best aligns with the principles of responsible risk assessment and regulatory compliance for this organization. Option A. Implement automated vulnerability scanning and asset discovery, followed by manual correlation of findings with business impact and regulatory requirements to determine risk levels. Option B. Automate the immediate remediation of all identified vulnerabilities based solely on the output of automated scanning tools, bypassing manual review and impact analysis. Option C. Focus on automating the collection of raw security logs from all systems and consider this the primary output for risk assessment, without a defined process for analysis and correlation. Option D. Deploy a fully automated risk scoring engine that assigns risk values to all identified vulnerabilities without human intervention or contextualization. The correct answer is A. Implement automated vulnerability scanning and asset discovery, followed by manual correlation of findings with business impact and regulatory requirements to determine risk levels. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity automation, balancing the need for rapid threat response with the imperative of maintaining regulatory compliance and data integrity during a risk assessment. The professional challenge lies in selecting an automated approach that not only identifies vulnerabilities, but also adheres to the specific requirements of the 300-735 SAUTO exam's implied regulatory framework, which emphasizes responsible data handling and accurate risk quantification. Careful judgment is required to avoid over-automation that could lead to compliance violations or inaccurate risk profiles. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased and validated integration of automation into the risk assessment process. This aligns with regulatory principles that often mandate thorough testing and validation before full deployment of automated systems, especially those handling sensitive security data. By focusing on automated vulnerability scanning and then manually correlating findings with business impact and regulatory requirements, the approach ensures that the automation serves as a tool to enhance, not replace, human expertise and judgment. This method upholds the integrity of the risk assessment by ensuring that automated outputs are contextualized and validated against real-world business needs and compliance obligations, thereby preventing misinterpretation or overreaction based solely on raw scan data. This aligns with the spirit of responsible automation and data governance often found in cybersecurity regulations. An incorrect approach that relies solely on automated risk scoring without human review fails to meet regulatory expectations for due diligence and accurate risk representation. Such an approach risks generating inaccurate risk scores due to the inherent limitations of automated tools in understanding business context, regulatory nuances, or the specific impact of a vulnerability on critical assets. This can lead to misallocation of resources, noncompliance with data protection or security standards, and ultimately, an incomplete or misleading risk posture. Another incorrect approach that involves immediate, unvalidated automated remediation based on scan results is ethically and regulatorily unsound. It bypasses the crucial step of risk assessment and impact analysis, potentially leading to the disruption of critical business operations or the unintended compromise of systems. Regulations typically require a structured incident response and change management process, which includes assessing the impact of any remediation action before it is implemented. Automating remediation without this oversight is a direct violation of responsible security practices and regulatory mandates for controlled change. A further incorrect approach that focuses on automating the collection of raw security logs without a defined process for risk analysis and correlation is also problematic. While log collection is a foundational element, its automation without a clear pathway to actionable risk intelligence fails to address the core requirement of a risk assessment. This can lead to data overload and a lack of clarity on actual security risks, making it difficult to demonstrate compliance or justify security investments. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the objectives of the risk assessment and the specific regulatory requirements. Second, identify automation opportunities that enhance efficiency without compromising accuracy or compliance. Third, implement and rigorously test automated tools in a controlled environment. Fourth, Ensure that automated outputs are always reviewed and validated by human experts who understand the business context and regulatory landscape. Finally, establish clear processes for integrating automated findings into the overall risk management framework, including remediation and reporting. Question 4. Performance analysis shows that a significant number of security alerts are being generated by the current security infrastructure, overwhelming the incident response team and leading to delayed remediation. To address this, a proposal has been made to automate the blocking of IP addresses associated with a high percentage of these alerts. Before proceeding with this automation, what is the most critical step to ensure effective and compliant implementation? Option A. Immediately implement the automated blocking of IP addresses to reduce the alert volume and free up the incident response team's resources. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential false positives, the impact of blocking legitimate traffic, and the effectiveness of the proposed automation against the organization's overall threat landscape. Option C. Deploy the automation to a small subset of the network to observe its immediate impact on alert volume and system performance. Option D. Rely on the vendor's documentation and best practices for automated IP blocking to ensure proper configuration and operation. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential false positives, the impact of blocking legitimate traffic, and the effectiveness of the proposed automation against the organization's overall threat landscape. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity automation, balancing the need for rapid threat response with the imperative of thorough risk assessment before implementing automated solutions. The professional challenge lies in the potential for poorly designed automation to inadvertently increase the attack surface, misclassify threats, or disrupt critical business operations, all of which carry significant regulatory and financial implications. Careful judgment is required to ensure that automation enhances, rather than compromises, the organization's security posture and compliance. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, risk-based methodology for evaluating and deploying security automation. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that automated solutions are implemented only after their potential impact on the organization's risk profile has been thoroughly understood and mitigated. This proactive stance is crucial for demonstrating due diligence and adherence to regulatory frameworks that mandate risk management and the implementation of appropriate security controls. By prioritizing a comprehensive risk assessment, organizations can ensure that automation efforts are aligned with business objectives and regulatory requirements, thereby minimizing unintended consequences and maximizing the return on investment in security technology. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately performs a risk assessment before deploying automation is professionally unacceptable due to several regulatory and ethical failures. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for established risk management principles, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory bodies. For instance, failing to assess the potential impact of an automated response on data privacy could lead to violations of data protection regulations. Similarly, deploying automation without understanding its potential to disrupt critical services could result in non-compliance with operational resilience requirements. Ethically, it represents a failure to act in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders by introducing unnecessary risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of any proposed security automation. This process should begin with clearly defining the problem the automation aims to solve and the desired outcomes. Subsequently, a comprehensive risk assessment must be conducted, identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and the impact of the automation on existing controls and business processes. This assessment should inform the design and configuration of the automation, including the development of robust testing and validation procedures. Finally, a phased deployment strategy with continuous monitoring and feedback loops should be employed to ensure the automation performs as intended and does not introduce new risks. Question 5. The assessment process reveals that while a significant investment has been made in Cisco security automation solutions, the organization's overall risk posture has not demonstrably improved. Which of the following approaches best addresses this discrepancy by focusing on the effectiveness of the automation in mitigating identified risks? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the implemented Cisco automation playbooks and workflows, correlating their execution logs with specific risk events and incident data to measure their direct impact on risk reduction. Option B. Update the organization's risk register with new threat intelligence without re-evaluating the performance of existing automation in light of this new information. Option C. Increase the deployment of additional Cisco security automation tools to cover a wider range of potential threats, assuming broader coverage will inherently improve risk mitigation. Option D. Perform a detailed technical audit of the Cisco automation platform's configuration and feature set to ensure all available security capabilities are enabled. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the implemented Cisco automation playbooks and workflows, correlating their execution logs with specific risk events and incident data to measure their direct impact on risk reduction. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a critical need to evaluate the effectiveness of automated security controls in mitigating identified risks. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires not just identifying risks, but also understanding how automation impacts the efficacy of risk mitigation strategies. The challenge lies in moving beyond a static risk register to a dynamic assessment that considers the real-world performance of automated solutions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly links the identified risks to the performance metrics of the automated controls designed to mitigate them. This aligns with the principles of continuous monitoring and improvement inherent in modern security frameworks, ensuring that automation is not just implemented, but is demonstrably effective. Regulatory compliance, particularly within the context of cybersecurity, often mandates demonstrable risk reduction and the ability to prove the effectiveness of security measures. This approach provides that evidence. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the implementation of automation without measuring its impact on risk levels fails to meet regulatory expectations for due diligence and effective risk management. It creates a false sense of security by assuming that the presence of automation equates to effective risk mitigation. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the technical capabilities of the automation tools over their ability to address specific, identified business risks is also professionally unacceptable. This leads to misallocation of resources and a failure to address the most critical vulnerabilities. Finally, an approach that relies on outdated risk assessment methodologies, failing to incorporate the unique aspects of automated controls, will inevitably lead to an incomplete and inaccurate understanding of the organization's security posture. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the organization's risk appetite and specific threats. This understanding should then guide the selection and configuration of automated security solutions. Crucially, the framework must include mechanisms for continuous performance monitoring and validation of these automated controls against the identified risks. This iterative process ensures that automation remains aligned with business objectives and effectively contributes to the overall security posture. Question 6. Analysis of the best practice for integrating new automation scripts into a live Cisco security environment, considering the need to maintain compliance with U.S. federal cybersecurity regulations when faced with pressure to deploy rapidly to address a perceived emerging threat. Option A. Immediately deploy the automation scripts across the entire production environment to quickly mitigate the perceived threat, relying on existing security controls to manage any unforeseen risks. Option B. Conduct a phased rollout of the automation scripts, starting with a limited test environment, followed by gradual deployment to production after thorough security validation and compliance checks against relevant NIST guidelines and FISMA requirements. Option C. Deploy the automation scripts to a separate, isolated network segment for initial testing, but bypass formal security validation and compliance reviews to expedite the process. Option D. Implement the automation scripts in the production environment without extensive testing, assuming that the benefits of rapid threat mitigation outweigh potential security or compliance risks. The correct answer is B. Conduct a phased rollout of the automation scripts, starting with a limited test environment, followed by gradual deployment to production after thorough security validation and compliance checks against relevant NIST guidelines and FISMA requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in automating security solutions, balancing the need for rapid deployment and operational efficiency with the imperative of maintaining robust security posture and compliance. The pressure to implement new automation quickly, driven by business needs or perceived threats, can lead to shortcuts that compromise security controls or violate regulatory requirements. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to ensure that automation efforts are not only technically sound, but also legally and ethically defensible within the specified regulatory framework. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating risks associated with automation without hindering its intended benefits. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased implementation with rigorous testing and validation against established security policies and regulatory mandates. This aligns with best practices for secure software development and deployment, which are implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks governing data security and privacy. By conducting thorough threat modeling, security control validation, and compliance checks at each stage, organizations can proactively identify and address vulnerabilities and non-compliance issues before they impact production environments. This methodical approach ensures that automation enhances, rather than degrades, the security posture and maintains adherence to relevant regulations, such as those pertaining to data integrity, access control, and incident response, as mandated by U.S. federal regulations like NIST SB 800-53 and the principles of the Federal Information Security Modernization Act, FISMA. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing automation without a comprehensive understanding of its impact on existing security controls and regulatory compliance is a significant failure. This could involve deploying scripts that bypass established access control mechanisms, inadvertently exposing sensitive data, or creating new attack vectors. Such actions directly contravene the principles of least privilege and defense in depth, which are foundational to U.S. cybersecurity regulations. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over thorough testing and validation. This can lead to the introduction of bugs or misconfigurations in the automation scripts that have unintended security consequences, such as denial of service conditions or data corruption. Regulatory frameworks often mandate that systems be operated in a secure and reliable manner, and a rushed deployment that fails to account for potential operational failures would be a violation. Finally, neglecting to document the automation processes and their security implications creates a significant compliance and audit risk. Without proper documentation, it becomes difficult to demonstrate adherence to security policies and regulatory requirements, and to effectively troubleshoot or remediate issues. This lack of transparency and accountability is a direct contravention of audit trail requirements and the need for demonstrable compliance with security standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to automation, prioritizing security and compliance throughout the entire lifecycle of the solution. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape. Thoroughly understanding all applicable U.S. federal and state regulations that govern the data and systems being automated. 2. Threat modeling and risk assessment. Proactively identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities introduced by the automation. 3. Phased implementation and testing. Deploying automation in stages with robust testing and validation at each step. 4. Continuous monitoring and auditing. Establishing mechanisms for ongoing monitoring of automated processes and regular audits to ensure continued compliance and security. 5. Documentation and knowledge sharing. Maintaining comprehensive documentation of all automation efforts and their security implications. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to rapidly deploy a new automated security solution to streamline firewall policy management. While the solution has been developed and appears to function correctly in a development environment, there are concerns about its full integration and potential impact on existing security controls and compliance requirements within the production network. What is the most appropriate approach to address this feedback while upholding security best practices and regulatory adherence? Option A. Deploy the automated solution only in the development environment and provide extensive documentation to the operations team for manual implementation in production, as direct automation is deemed too risky. Option B. Defer the deployment of the automated solution indefinitely until a perfect, risk-free implementation can be guaranteed, which may take an extended period. Option C. Implement the automated solution directly into the production environment to meet the immediate stakeholder demand, with plans to address any issues that arise post-deployment. Option D. Conduct a phased rollout of the automated solution, starting with a limited pilot in a non-critical segment of the production environment, followed by comprehensive testing, validation, and stakeholder review before a full deployment. The correct answer is C. Implement the automated solution directly into the production environment to meet the immediate stakeholder demand, with plans to address any issues that arise post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing automated security solutions, balancing the desire for rapid deployment and efficiency with the need for thorough validation and adherence to established security best practices and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in navigating stakeholder pressure for speed against the inherent risks of deploying unverified automation, which could lead to security gaps, misconfiguration, or non-compliance with Cisco's recommended practices for the SAUTO exam. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, phased deployment that includes rigorous testing and validation within a controlled environment before full production rollout. This aligns with Cisco's emphasis on secure automation principles, ensuring that automated workflows are not only functional, but also secure, reliable, and compliant with the intended security posture. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of introducing vulnerabilities or operational disruptions, thereby safeguarding the organization's security and meeting its compliance obligations. An incorrect approach that bypasses comprehensive testing and validation before production deployment poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. It directly contravenes the principle of due diligence in security implementation. From a regulatory perspective, failing to adequately test and validate automated security controls could be seen as a breach of compliance requirements that mandate robust security measures and risk management. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the potential harm that insecure or malfunctioning automation could inflict on the organization and its data. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical functionality of the automation without considering its integration into the broader security ecosystem and potential impact on existing policies, also fails. This overlooks the holistic nature of security automation, which requires understanding dependencies, potential conflicts, and the overall security posture. Such a narrow focus can lead to unintended consequences, creating new security risks or undermining existing controls. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. This includes clearly defining the scope and objectives of the automation, identifying potential risks and their impact, and establishing clear validation criteria. Stakeholder communication is crucial to manage expectations regarding timelines and to ensure buy-in for a phased, risk-mitigated deployment. Prioritizing security and compliance throughout the automation lifecycle, from design to deployment and ongoing monitoring, is paramount. Question 8. Compliance review shows that the current automated security solution for threat response is configured to automatically quarantine any endpoint exhibiting unusual network traffic patterns, without prior human verification or a defined rollback procedure. This approach was implemented to ensure rapid containment of potential threats. Which of the following approaches best aligns with best practices for automating Cisco security solutions in a regulated environment? Option A. Implement a tiered automation strategy where initial alerts trigger automated investigation and enrichment, followed by human review for high-confidence threats before automated remediation actions are executed, with a clearly defined rollback plan. Option B. Configure the system to send all alerts to a security analyst for manual review and approval before any automated action is taken, regardless of the alert's severity. Option C. Prioritize the deployment of new automation modules that block all outbound traffic from any endpoint exhibiting even minor deviations from baseline network behavior to ensure maximum threat prevention. Option D. Expand the scope of the current automated quarantine to include all endpoints that have not logged in within the last 24 hours to proactively reduce the attack surface. The correct answer is A. Implement a tiered automation strategy where initial alerts trigger automated investigation and enrichment, followed by human review for high-confidence threats before automated remediation actions are executed, with a clearly defined rollback plan. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in automated security solutions, balancing the need for rapid threat response with the potential for unintended consequences or policy violations. The professional challenge lies in selecting an automation strategy that is both effective in mitigating immediate risks and compliant with established security policies and regulatory frameworks. Careful judgment is required to avoid over-automation that could lead to service disruptions or under-automation that leaves critical assets vulnerable. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, risk-based implementation of automation. This involves thorough testing in a controlled environment, clear definition of automation triggers and actions, and robust rollback mechanisms. This aligns with the principles of responsible automation, ensuring that security controls are enhanced without introducing new vulnerabilities or violating the spirit of regulatory compliance, which often emphasizes due diligence and risk management. The focus on granular policy enforcement and continuous monitoring ensures that automated actions are always aligned with organizational security posture and applicable regulations. An incorrect approach that relies solely on broad, reactive automation without adequate testing or policy validation poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Such an approach could lead to the automated blocking of legitimate traffic or the disabling of critical services, potentially violating data privacy regulations, e.g., by inadvertently blocking access to personal data or service-level agreements. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately protect the organization's operational integrity and its users' access to services. Another incorrect approach, focusing on manual intervention for every automated action, negates the benefits of automation and introduces significant delays in threat response. This can be seen as a failure to implement effective security controls, potentially violating regulations that mandate timely mitigation of security incidents. It also represents a missed opportunity to leverage technology for improved security posture, which could be viewed as a dereliction of professional duty. Finally, an approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over comprehensive policy integration risks creating security gaps or policy conflicts. This could lead to automated actions that inadvertently bypass existing security controls or violate specific compliance requirements, such as those related to data handling or access control. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment, a clear understanding of the organization's security policies and regulatory obligations, and a phased implementation strategy. This includes defining clear objectives for automation, identifying potential risks and mitigation strategies, and establishing metrics for success and continuous improvement. Prioritizing testing, validation, and ongoing monitoring is crucial for ensuring that automated security solutions are both effective and compliant. Question 9. Research into the implementation of an automated security policy enforcement solution reveals several potential approaches. One approach involves deploying the automation tool with administrative privileges across all network segments to ensure immediate and comprehensive policy application. Another suggests a phased rollout, starting with a limited set of policies in a non-production environment, with the automation tool configured to operate with only the specific permissions required for each policy task. A third option proposes integrating the automation tool directly into the production environment without prior testing, relying on its inherent security features to manage risks. A fourth approach involves granting the automation tool broad read-only access to all security configuration, allowing it to identify policy deviations but not to make any changes, which approach best aligns with professional best practices for secure automation deployment. Option A. Phased rollout, starting with a limited set of policies in a non-production environment, with the automation tool configured to operate with only the specific permissions required for each policy task. Option B. Deploying the automation tool with administrative privileges across all network segments to ensure immediate and comprehensive policy application. Option C. Integrating the automation tool directly into the production environment without prior testing, relying on its inherent security features to manage risks. Option D. Granting the automation tool broad read-only access to all security configurations, allowing it to identify policy deviations but not to make any changes. The correct answer is A. A phased rollout, starting with a limited set of policies in a non-production environment, with the automation tool configured to operate with only the specific permissions required for each policy task. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in automating security solutions, balancing the need for rapid deployment and operational efficiency with the imperative of maintaining robust security posture and compliance. The professional challenge lies in selecting an automation strategy that not only meets technical requirements, but also adheres to the principles of least privilege and secure configuration, as mandated by regulatory frameworks relevant to the SAUTO exam. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is not explicitly stated, therefore, we will assume a general best practice framework applicable to most regulated environments, focusing on principles that underpin common security regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, risk-based implementation of automation. This involves thorough testing in isolated environments, granular access control for automation tools, and continuous monitoring. This aligns with the principle of defense in depth and the regulatory expectation of due diligence in deploying and managing security technologies. By ensuring that automation tools operate with the minimum necessary privileges and that their actions are auditable, organizations can mitigate risks of unauthorized access or misconfiguration, thereby upholding compliance with security standards that often require demonstrable control and oversight. An incorrect approach that grants broad, unfettered access to automation tools without granular controls is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach violates the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of secure system design and a common requirement in security regulations. It increases the attack surface, making it easier for compromised automation credentials to be exploited for malicious purposes, leading to potential data breaches and system compromise. This lack of control and oversight directly contravenes the expectation that organizations will implement and manage security controls effectively, potentially leading to fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established change management and approval processes for automation deployment introduces significant risk. This undermines the integrity of the security infrastructure and can lead to unintended consequences, such as conflicts with existing security policies or the introduction of vulnerabilities. Regulatory frameworks typically mandate documented processes for changes to critical systems, including security controls, to ensure accountability and prevent errors. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment. This includes identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities associated with the proposed automation, evaluating the impact of these risks, and determining appropriate mitigation strategies. Professionals must consult relevant security policies, compliance requirements, and industry best practices. A key step is to advocate for automation solutions that inherently support security principles like least privilege, auditability, and secure development lifecycles. When evaluating automation strategies, prioritize those that allow for staged rollouts, comprehensive testing, and continuous validation of their security posture. Question 10. Compliance review shows that the current security incident response process relies heavily on manual intervention, leading to delays in mitigating threats. To improve efficiency and reduce response times for common attack vectors, the security team is considering implementing automated actions. Given the organization's commitment to adhering to U.S. data privacy regulations and maintaining operational continuity, which of the following approaches best balances rapid threat mitigation with regulatory compliance and operational stability? Option A. Deploy a SOAR platform that integrates with existing security tools to orchestrate automated detection, alerting, and prioritized human review of potential incidents before automated remediation actions are executed. Option B. Develop custom scripts to automatically quarantine any endpoint exhibiting suspicious behavior, bypassing existing incident response workflows and SIEM logging. Option C. Implement an automated system that immediately blocks all traffic from any IP address flagged as malicious by threat intelligence feeds, without human review. Option D. Focus on increasing the speed of manual incident response through additional training and staffing, without introducing automation. The correct answer is C. Implement an automated system that immediately blocks all traffic from any IP address flagged as malicious by threat intelligence feeds, without human review. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in automated security solutions, balancing the need for rapid threat response with the potential for unintended consequences and compliance violations. The professional challenge lies in selecting an automation strategy that is both effective in mitigating immediate risks and adheres to the strict regulatory framework governing data handling and security incident reporting. The core of the difficulty is ensuring that automated actions, while swift, do not inadvertently breach data privacy regulations or bypass necessary human oversight for critical decisions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, auditable, and compliant implementation. Starting with detection and alerting, the organization ensures that human security analysts can review and validate potential threats before automated remediation actions are triggered. This aligns with regulatory requirements that often mandate human review for actions impacting sensitive data or critical systems. Furthermore, integrating with existing security orchestration, automation, and response (SOAR) platforms allows for centralized management, logging, and policy enforcement, which are crucial for demonstrating compliance and maintaining an audit trail. This approach minimizes the risk of false positives causing service disruption or data exposure, thereby upholding the principles of data protection and operational integrity. An incorrect approach that immediately triggers automated blocking of all traffic from an identified IP address without prior human validation is professionally unacceptable. This fails to account for the possibility of false positives, which could lead to legitimate user access being denied and potential business disruption. Or critically, depending on the nature of the data being protected, such an immediate broad-stroke action might violate data minimization principles or trigger reporting obligations under specific regulations if it inadvertently impacts protected data categories without proper justification or oversight. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical speed of deployment without considering the integration into existing compliance workflows, is also flawed. While rapid deployment is desirable, it must be done within the established governance framework. Ignoring the need for integration with SIEM, security information and event management, for logging and auditing, or with incident response playbooks that require human sign-off for certain actions, creates significant compliance gaps. This can lead to an inability to demonstrate due diligence during an audit or an incident investigation, potentially resulting in regulatory penalties. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. First, identify the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the data and systems being protected. Second, evaluate the potential impact of both automated actions and inaction. Third, design automation workflows that incorporate necessary human oversight at critical decision points, especially those involving data access, modification, or blocking. Fourth, ensure comprehensive logging and auditing capabilities are in place to support compliance and incident response. Finally, conduct thorough testing and validation of automated processes before full deployment to minimize the risk of unintended consequences. Question 11. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new Cisco security automation solution offers significant operational efficiencies, but the implementation team is under pressure to deploy it across the entire enterprise within a tight deadline. The primary concern is ensuring that the automation does not inadvertently create new security gaps or violate existing U.S. regulatory compliance mandates for data handling. What is the most professionally responsible approach to deploying this solution? Option A. Implement the automation solution in a phased approach, starting with a pilot group or a non-critical segment of the network, followed by rigorous testing, validation, and iterative refinement before expanding to the full enterprise. Option B. Deploy the automation solution across the entire enterprise immediately to realize the projected cost savings, with a plan to address any security or compliance issues that arise post-deployment. Option C. Delay the deployment indefinitely until a perfect, risk-free implementation plan can be guaranteed, even if it means forfeiting the immediate operational efficiencies. Option D. Prioritize the cost-saving aspects of the automation solution and deploy it broadly, relying on existing security controls to mitigate any potential new risks without specific validation of the automation's security impact. The correct answer is B. Deploy the automation solution across the entire enterprise immediately to realize the projected cost savings, with a plan to address any security or compliance issues that arise post-deployment. Explanation. The scenario presents a common implementation challenge in automating security solutions. balancing the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of robust security validation. The professional challenge lies in navigating the pressure to deliver quickly against the risk of introducing vulnerabilities or noncompliance due to insufficient testing. This requires a nuanced understanding of the SAUTO. Exams focus on practical automation within a secure and compliant framework. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, risk-based deployment strategy. This aligns with the principles of Secure Development Lifecycle, SDLC, and the regulatory expectation of due diligence in implementing new technologies. By starting with a pilot and gradually expanding, the organization can identify and remediate issues in a controlled environment, minimizing the impact of potential failures. This methodical approach also facilitates better documentation and audit trails, crucial for demonstrating compliance with any applicable U.S. regulatory frameworks governing data security and system integrity. An incorrect approach that bypasses thorough testing and validation before full deployment poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. It directly contravenes the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, often mandated by U.S. regulations like NIST guidelines, which emphasize a proactive security posture. Such an approach increases the likelihood of data breaches, service disruptions, and non-compliance penalties. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the organization's responsibility to protect sensitive data and maintain operational integrity. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on cost reduction without considering security implications, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a failure to grasp the fundamental purpose of security automation to enhance, not compromise, security. It ignores the potential long-term costs associated with security incidents, which far outweigh initial savings. This approach can lead to violations of data privacy laws and contractual obligations, exposing the organization to legal repercussions and reputational damage. The professional decision-making process should involve a thorough risk assessment of the automation solution, considering its impact on existing security controls and compliance requirements. A phased rollout, starting with a limited scope and progressively increasing complexity, is generally advisable. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to identify and address issues promptly. Professionals must advocate for adequate resources for testing and validation, even if it means a slightly longer deployment timeline, as the cost of a security failure is invariably higher. Question 12. Which approach would be most effective in automating the integration of a new cloud-based application with existing security infrastructure, ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations and robust API security? Option A. Implement automated security testing for API endpoints. Integrate these tests into the CI/CD pipeline, and establish automated monitoring for API traffic anomalies. Option B. Prioritize rapid deployment of the application and address API security concerns through manual reviews after the initial integration is complete. Option C. Deploy the application with minimal security configurations and rely on the cloud provider's default security settings for API protection. Option D. Focus on automating the application's core functionalities and defer all security automation efforts until after the application has been fully operational for a defined period. The correct answer is A. Implement automated security testing for API endpoints. Integrate these tests into the CI/CD pipeline and establish automated monitoring for API traffic anomalies. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in automating security solutions, balancing the need for rapid deployment and integration with the imperative of maintaining robust security posture and compliance. The pressure to quickly integrate a new cloud-based application, coupled with the inherent complexity of API security and data privacy, creates a high-stakes environment. Professionals must navigate the technical intricacies of automation while adhering to strict regulatory frameworks that govern data handling and system access. The risk of misconfiguration or inadequate security controls during rapid automation can lead to significant compliance violations, data breaches, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to select an automation strategy that is both efficient and secure, ensuring that all regulatory requirements are met without compromising the integrity of the security controls. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation that prioritizes security validation and compliance checks throughout the automation lifecycle. This includes defining clear API security policies, implementing automated security testing for API endpoints, such as authentication, authorization, and input validation, and integrating these tests into the CI/CD pipeline. Furthermore, it necessitates the use of automated tools for continuous monitoring of API traffic for anomalous behavior and potential threats. This approach aligns with best practices for secure software development and deployment, ensuring that security is not an afterthought, but an integral part of the automation process. It directly addresses the need to comply with regulations by embedding security controls and validation mechanisms that can be audited and verified, thereby minimizing the risk of noncompliance and data compromise. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment, without incorporating automated security validation for API endpoints, would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to the introduction of vulnerabilities that could be exploited, potentially resulting in unauthorized access to sensitive data, which is a direct violation of data privacy regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to manually configure security controls for each API integration, bypassing automation. This is inefficient, prone to human error, and fails to leverage the benefits of automation for consistent and scalable security. It also makes auditing and compliance difficult to demonstrate effectively. Finally, an approach that neglects to automate the monitoring of API traffic for security threats would leave the organization exposed to ongoing attacks, failing to meet the proactive security requirements mandated by many regulatory frameworks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to automation, prioritizing security and compliance at every stage. This involves understanding the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the data being processed and the systems being automated. A decision-making framework should include 1. Threat modeling, identifying potential security risks associated with the automation and the application being integrated. 2. Policy definition, establishing clear security policies for API access, data handling, and system configuration. 3. Tool selection, choosing automation tools that support robust security features and compliance reporting. 4. Phased implementation, deploying automation in stages, with thorough testing and validation at each step. 5. Continuous monitoring and improvement, establishing mechanisms for ongoing monitoring and adapting automation strategies based on performance and evolving threats. This systematic process ensures that automation enhances security and compliance rather than undermining it. Question 13. The review process indicates that the automated incident response playbook for a U.S.-based healthcare provider is collecting extensive network traffic logs and endpoint telemetry data that may contain protected health information. The current automation script directly ingests and analyzes this raw data without any intermediate processing to obscure sensitive fields. What is the most compliant and professionally sound approach to address this situation while still leveraging the benefits of security automation? Option A. Rely solely on strict role-based access controls within the Security Information and Event Management (SIEM) system to protect the raw PHI data from unauthorized access. Option B. Implement data masking and pseudonymization techniques within the automated playbook to de-identify PHI before it is logged or analyzed by the automation engine. Option C. Automate the process of redacting PHI from the collected logs only after the incident has been fully investigated and resolved. Option D. Disable the automated collection of network traffic and endpoint telemetry logs for all systems that handle PHI to avoid any potential data privacy violations. The correct answer is B. Implement data masking and pseudonymization techniques within the automated playbook to de-identify PHI before it is logged or analyzed by the automation engine. Explanation. The review process indicates a critical implementation challenge in automating security workflows, specifically concerning the handling of sensitive customer data during incident response automation. Challenge lies in balancing the speed and efficiency gains of automation with the stringent data privacy regulations mandated by the U.S. framework, particularly the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, for protected health information, FI, and the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, for personal information. Automating incident response often involves collecting, processing, and potentially sharing log data, network traffic, and endpoint information, which can contain sensitive customer details. Failure to adequately protect this data during automated processes can lead to significant regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The correct approach involves implementing robust data masking, anonymization, or pseudonymization techniques within the automated incident response workflows. This ensures that sensitive data is either removed or rendered unintelligible before it is logged, analyzed, or shared, even within automated systems. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, core tenets of U.S. data privacy laws. By proactively de-identifying data at the source of automation, organizations can achieve the benefits of rapid incident detection and response without compromising regulatory compliance. This demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and a mature approach to security automation. An incorrect approach would be to automate the collection and analysis of raw, unredacted sensitive data without implementing any data protection controls. This directly violates the spirit and letter of HIPAA and CCPA, which require covered entities and businesses to implement appropriate safeguards to protect personal and health information. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on access controls to protect sensitive data within the automated system. While access controls are important, they do not prevent the unauthorized disclosure or misuse of data if the system itself is compromised, or if the automated process inadvertently shares data with unauthorized parties. This approach fails to address the inherent risks associated with processing sensitive data in an automated fashion. A third incorrect approach is to disable automated data collection for sensitive information altogether, thereby sacrificing the benefits of automation for the sake of compliance. This is an overly cautious and inefficient solution that fails to leverage the capabilities of security automation effectively and may lead to slower incident response times, increasing the overall risk to the organization. Professionals should adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves thoroughly understanding the types of data being processed by automated security solutions, identifying potential privacy risks associated with each workflow, and then selecting and implementing appropriate technical and organizational safeguards to mitigate those risks. This requires close collaboration between security, legal, and compliance teams to ensure that automation initiatives are designed with privacy by design and by default principles. Question 14. The analysis reveals that a newly implemented automated threat detection and response system has identified a suspicious network traffic pattern indicative of a potential zero-day exploit. The system is configured to automatically quarantine affected endpoints and block the source IP address. However, the security operations team has not yet had the opportunity to fully validate the accuracy of the detection logic in their specific environment or to test the remediation actions in a simulated scenario. What is the most professionally responsible course of action to take immediately? Option A. Manually investigate the suspicious traffic pattern to confirm the threat before any automated actions are taken. Option B. Initiate the automated remediation process to ensure rapid containment of the potential threat. Option C. Temporarily disable the automated remediation feature for this specific detection rule until validation is complete. Option D. Proceed with the automated remediation, but immediately alert all stakeholders about the potential for false positives. Correct answer is B. Initiate the automated remediation process to ensure rapid containment of the potential threat. Explanation. The analysis reveals a common implementation challenge in automating security solutions, balancing the need for rapid threat response with the imperative of maintaining system integrity and compliance. In the context of the 300-735 SAUTO exam, which focuses on Cisco security solutions automation, this scenario highlights the critical need for robust testing and validation before deploying automated remediation actions. The professional challenge lies in the potential for unintended consequences, such as disrupting legitimate business operations or creating new vulnerabilities, if automated responses are not thoroughly vetted. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased and controlled deployment of automated security actions. This involves rigorous testing in a non-production environment, followed by a pilot deployment with close monitoring. This methodology ensures that the automated solution functions as intended, effectively mitigates the identified threat, and does not introduce adverse side effects. This aligns with the principles of responsible automation and risk management, which are implicitly expected in the deployment of any security technology, including those covered by the SAUTO exam. While specific regulations are not explicitly detailed for this exam's jurisdiction, the underlying ethical and professional standards dictate a duty of care to prevent harm and maintain operational stability. An incorrect approach that involves immediately deploying a broad, untested automated response to a detected anomaly is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for due diligence and a potential violation of the principle of least privilege and impact. Such an action could lead to significant operational disruption, financial loss, and reputational damage, all of which are serious professional failings. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of understanding of the potential for false positives in security detection systems, which could trigger unwarranted and damaging automated actions. Another incorrect approach, which is to rely solely on vendor-provided default automation policies without customization or validation, also presents significant risks. While vendors strive for robust solutions, their default configurations may not align with the specific security posture, risk tolerance, or operational requirements of an organization. Deploying these without review can lead to ineffective security or, conversely, overly aggressive actions that disrupt business. This approach neglects the critical step of tailoring automation to the unique environment, which is a hallmark of professional security engineering. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment and a phased implementation strategy. This includes clearly defining the scope and objectives of automation, identifying potential risks and their impact, developing comprehensive test plans, executing tests in isolated environments, conducting pilot deployments with rollback plans, and establishing continuous monitoring and feedback loops. Professionals must always consider the potential for unintended consequences and prioritize a measured, evidence-based approach to automation deployment. Question 15. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a security team is tasked with automating the process of granting privileged access to cloud resources based on predefined role-based access control (RBAC) policies. The team has identified a new automation tool that can integrate with the cloud provider's API to provision and deprovision access dynamically. However, the tool's default configuration includes broad permissions that could potentially exceed the minimum necessary privileges required by the RBAC policies, which approach best balances rapid deployment with adherence to security best practices and regulatory compliance. Option A. Implement the automation tool with its default configuration and rely on post-deployment monitoring to detect any policy violations. Option B. Configure the automation tool to strictly adhere to the defined RBAC policies, requiring explicit approval for any deviations, and conduct thorough pre-deployment testing against these policies. Option C. Prioritize the speed of deployment by enabling all features of the automation tool and address security configurations in a subsequent phase. Option D. Integrate the automation tool without explicit RBAC policy validation, assuming the cloud provider's inherent security controls will mitigate any risks. The correct answer is A. Implement the automation tool with its default configuration and rely on post-deployment monitoring to detect any policy violations. Explanation: the evaluation methodology shows a common implementation challenge in automating security solutions, balancing the need for rapid deployment and integration with robust security and compliance requirements. In the context of the SAUTO exam, this often translates to integrating new security tools or workflows without introducing vulnerabilities or violating established security policies and regulatory mandates. The professional challenge lies in selecting an automation strategy that is both effective in achieving the desired security outcome and compliant with the relevant regulatory framework. This requires a deep understanding of the automation tool's capabilities, the existing security posture, and the specific compliance obligations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, risk-aware implementation that includes thorough testing and validation against defined security policies and regulatory requirements. This aligns with the principles of secure development and deployment, ensuring that automation enhances security rather than undermining it. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to maintaining a compliant and secure environment, which is paramount in regulated industries. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately addresses security policy validation introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. For instance, deploying an automation script that modifies firewall rules without proper review and approval could lead to unauthorized access, violating data protection regulations and internal security policies. Another incorrect approach that neglects to document the automation process and its security implications hinders auditability and accountability, making it difficult to demonstrate compliance during regulatory reviews. Failing to consider the impact of automation on data privacy and consent mechanisms can lead to violations of privacy laws. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the desired automation outcome and its potential security implications. This should be followed by an assessment of the chosen automation tool's security features and its compatibility with existing security controls and policies. A critical step is to map the automation workflow against relevant regulatory requirements and internal security standards. Prioritizing a pilot deployment with comprehensive testing and validation, followed by a staged rollout with continuous monitoring, ensures that security and compliance are maintained throughout the automation lifecycle. Question 16. Quality control measures reveal a critical security vulnerability in a core network service that is managed by an automated Cisco security solution. The automated solution has a predefined remediation playbook designed to address this specific type of vulnerability. However, the playbook has not been fully tested in a production-like environment for this exact scenario. The security operations team is under significant pressure to deploy the fix immediately to mitigate potential exploitation. What is the most professional and secure approach to address this situation? Option A. Execute the automated remediation playbook immediately, as it is designed to address the vulnerability and speed is paramount. Option B. Deploy the automated remediation playbook after a brief, targeted validation of its core functions in a controlled production segment with immediate rollback capabilities. Option C. Manually apply the necessary configuration changes to the network service to fix the vulnerability, bypassing the automated playbook entirely. Option D. Initiate a full regression testing cycle for the playbook in a staging environment before considering deployment, even if it delays the fix. The correct answer is A. Execute the automated remediation playbook immediately, as it is designed to address the vulnerability and speed is paramount. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between the desire to quickly address a security vulnerability and the ethical obligation to maintain data privacy and adhere to established security protocols. The pressure to deploy a fix rapidly can lead to shortcuts that bypass necessary validation and authorization steps, potentially exposing sensitive data or creating new security risks. Careful judgment is required to balance urgency with due diligence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to the established change management and incident response procedures. This ensures that any remediation efforts are documented, tested, and authorized, minimizing the risk of unintended consequences. Following these procedures aligns with best practices for secure automation and demonstrates a commitment to responsible security operations, which is implicitly supported by the principles of secure system design and operation, often found in regulatory frameworks governing IT security. This approach upholds the integrity of the security posture and protects against unauthorized access or data breaches, which are key concerns in any regulated environment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately deploying the automated fix without proper validation or approval. This bypasses critical security controls and the change management process. Such an action could lead to a breach of data privacy regulations if sensitive information is inadvertently exposed or mishandled during the unapproved deployment. It also violates the principle of least privilege and controlled access, which are fundamental to secure operations. Another incorrect approach is to delay the deployment indefinitely due to fear of unintended consequences, without engaging the appropriate stakeholders or initiating a risk assessment. This failure to act in a timely manner, especially when a vulnerability is known, can be considered negligent. It leaves the organization exposed to the identified threat, potentially violating regulatory requirements to maintain a secure environment and respond to threats promptly. This inaction can also lead to a loss of trust from stakeholders and a failure to meet compliance obligations. A third incorrect approach is to manually implement the fix without using the automated solution, even though the automated solution was designed for this purpose. While seemingly safer, this undermines the investment in automation and can introduce human error, potentially creating new vulnerabilities. Furthermore, it deviates from the established and approved automated security solutions, which could be a violation of internal security policies and potentially external compliance requirements that mandate the use of approved and tested security tools and processes. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that involves 1. Understanding the immediate threat and its potential impact. 2. Consulting established incident response and change management policies. 3. Performing a rapid risk assessment of the proposed automated fix, including potential side effects. 4. Engaging relevant stakeholders for timely approval. 5. Documenting all actions taken and decisions made. 6. Prioritizing adherence to security best practices and regulatory compliance, even under pressure. Question 17. During the evaluation of a new automation script designed to streamline firewall rule updates, a business unit manager expresses extreme urgency, requesting immediate deployment to production to facilitate a critical, time-sensitive marketing campaign. The script has undergone initial functional testing, but has not yet completed the full security review and change management approval process. The manager insists that delaying deployment will result in significant financial losses for the company. Option A. Inform the business unit manager that the script cannot be deployed until it successfully passes all security reviews and change management approvals, and explore alternative, less automated methods for the critical campaign if necessary. Option B. Deploy the automation script to production with a rollback plan, but without completing the full security review, assuming the risks are acceptable given the urgency. Option C. Deploy the automation script to production, but disable all logging and monitoring for the script to avoid any potential disruption during the campaign. Option D. Proceed with deploying the automation script to production immediately, as requested by the business unit manager, to mitigate the potential financial losses. The correct answer is D. Proceed with deploying the automation script to production immediately, as requested by the business unit manager, to mitigate the potential financial losses. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT security automation, where the desire for rapid deployment and perceived efficiency clashes with the fundamental principles of security best practices and regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of a business request with the potential risks introduced by bypassing established security validation processes. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that, while seemingly beneficial in the short term, can have significant long-term security and compliance repercussions. Professionals must exercise sound judgment to navigate these competing priorities without compromising security or integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves adhering to established change management and security validation protocols. This means thoroughly testing the automation script in a controlled environment, documenting all changes, and obtaining necessary approvals before deploying it to production. This aligns with the principles of responsible automation and risk management, which are implicitly and explicitly supported by regulatory frameworks governing data security and IT operations. For example, in the U.S., frameworks like NIST SB 800-53, which informs many federal and private sector security practices, emphasize the importance of change control, testing, and authorization before implementing system modifications. This methodical approach ensures that the automation does not introduce vulnerabilities, disrupt critical services, or violate compliance requirements, thereby upholding professional integrity and organizational security posture. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the automation script directly to production without thorough testing or proper approval is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This bypasses critical security controls and risk assessment processes. It violates the principle of least privilege and due diligence, as the script's impact on the production environment is unknown. Such an action could lead to unintended consequences, such as service outages, data breaches, or the introduction of security vulnerabilities, all of which could result in severe regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and financial losses. This approach demonstrates a disregard for established security governance and a failure to act in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach is to delay the deployment indefinitely due to minor, non-critical issues identified during initial testing, without communicating the risks or seeking alternative solutions. While thoroughness is important, an inability to adapt and find pragmatic solutions can also be detrimental. This can lead to the business continuing to operate with manual, less secure processes, or seeking unauthorized workarounds, which can be more risky than a well-vetted automated solution. It also fails to meet the professional obligation to provide effective and efficient security solutions. A third incorrect approach would be to modify the script to simply mask or suppress error messages without addressing the underlying issues. This creates a false sense of security, making it appear as though the automation is functioning correctly when it is not. This is a direct violation of ethical principles related to honesty and transparency in reporting and system management. It also undermines the ability to detect and respond to actual security incidents, increasing the organization's exposure to risk and potential noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves understanding the business requirements, assessing the potential risks associated with the proposed automation, and evaluating the effectiveness of existing controls. When faced with pressure to expedite, the process should involve clear communication with stakeholders about the risks of bypassing security measures. If a deviation from standard procedure is absolutely necessary, it must be formally documented, justified with a compelling business case, and accompanied by compensatory controls and a plan for immediate post-deployment validation. The ultimate goal is to achieve the business objective without compromising security, compliance, or ethical standards. Question 18. Governance review demonstrates that a proposed automation solution for network access control is significantly faster and more cost-effective than the current manual process. However, the automation script was developed by a junior engineer with limited experience in security best practices and has not undergone a formal security audit or impact assessment against existing regulatory frameworks. The solution is ready for immediate deployment. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Deploy the automation solution immediately to realize the cost and efficiency benefits, with a plan to conduct a security audit and impact assessment post-deployment. Option B. Deploy the automation solution to a limited, non-critical segment of the network for initial testing, while simultaneously beginning the security audit and impact assessment. Option C. Proceed with the deployment, assuming the junior engineer followed standard coding practices, and address any identified security issues reactively as they arise. Option D. Halt the deployment and initiate a comprehensive security audit and impact assessment of the automation solution, involving senior security engineers and compliance officers, before any further consideration for deployment. The correct answer is A. Deploy the automation solution immediately to realize the cost and efficiency benefits, with a plan to conduct a security audit and impact assessment post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT security automation, where the drive for efficiency and cost savings clashes with the imperative of robust security and compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate benefits of a proposed automation solution against potential long-term risks and regulatory adherence. The governance review highlights a potential gap in oversight and risk assessment, making the decision-making process critical. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough, risk-based evaluation that aligns with established security frameworks and regulatory requirements. This involves understanding the specific security controls being automated, assessing the potential impact of automation failures, and ensuring that the proposed solution meets or exceeds existing compliance mandates. Best professional practice dictates a proactive and diligent approach to security automation, ensuring that it enhances, rather than compromises, the organization's security posture and regulatory standing. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology adoption and due diligence, which are implicitly expected within any regulated environment. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the automation without adequate validation. This could lead to significant security vulnerabilities, data breaches, and non-compliance with regulations. For instance, automating a critical security function without understanding its dependencies or potential failure modes could inadvertently create new attack vectors. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost savings or speed of implementation over security and compliance. This demonstrates a failure in risk management and a disregard for the organization's legal and ethical obligations. Such actions could result in severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that includes 1. Clearly defining the scope and objectives of the automation. 2. Conducting a comprehensive risk assessment, including potential failure scenarios and their impact. 3. Evaluating the proposed solution against existing security policies, industry best practices, and relevant regulatory requirements. 4. Seeking input from relevant stakeholders, including security, compliance, and legal teams. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen approach. This systematic approach ensures that automation initiatives are implemented responsibly and effectively, mitigating risks and upholding compliance. Question 19. The performance metrics show a significant increase in automated security alert volume, leading to a backlog and potential missed threats. The security automation engineer is tasked with addressing this without compromising the integrity of the automated security solutions. Which of the following actions best represents a responsible and ethical approach to managing this situation? Option A. Instruct the Security Operations Center (SOC) team to manually triage all incoming alerts until the backlog is cleared, bypassing the automated alert prioritization. Option B. Immediately escalate the issue to management with detailed performance data and propose a multifaceted solution including rule refinement and resource allocation review. Option C. Temporarily disable several high-volume automation rules to reduce the backlog, planning to reevaluate them later when time permits. Option D. Focus solely on optimizing the performance of the existing automation scripts to process alerts faster, without altering the alert generation logic. The correct answer is B. Immediately escalate the issue to management with detailed performance data and propose a multifaceted solution including rule refinement and resource allocation review. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in automated security alert volume, leading to a backlog and potential missed threats. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma for the security automation engineer. The challenge lies in balancing the efficiency gains of automation with the responsibility to ensure effective threat detection and response, especially when faced with resource constraints or the temptation to over-rely on automated systems without adequate human oversight. The engineer must consider the potential impact on the organization's security posture and the trust placed in the automated systems. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent communication strategy. The engineer should immediately escalate the issue to management, providing clear data on the alert volume, the impact on response times, and potential risks. This includes proposing concrete solutions, such as refining automation rules, increasing human review capacity, or adjusting alert thresholds. This approach aligns with professional ethics by prioritizing the organization's security and demonstrating accountability. It also adheres to the spirit of responsible automation, which requires continuous monitoring and adjustment to maintain effectiveness. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the metrics or to attempt to suppress the alert volume by simply disabling certain automation rules without proper analysis or approval. This is ethically problematic because it knowingly increases the risk of missed threats, potentially violating the duty of care to protect organizational assets. It also undermines the principles of transparency and accountability. Another incorrect approach would be to blame the automation tools themselves without investigating the underlying causes, such as poor rule configuration or insufficient integration. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and problem-solving skills. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data-driven insights, ethical considerations, and clear communication. When faced with performance anomalies in automated systems, the first step is to gather and analyze the relevant data. This is followed by an assessment of the potential risks and impacts. Crucially, any proposed solutions or changes to the automated system should be communicated transparently to stakeholders, and decisions should be made collaboratively, considering both technical feasibility and ethical obligations. Question 20. Regulatory review indicates that an organization is implementing an automated security solution to ingest and analyze logs from various critical systems. During the implementation phase, it is discovered that these logs contain sensitive customer information, including personally identifiable information, PI. Security team is debating how to proceed with the log ingestion and analysis to ensure both effective security monitoring and compliance with data privacy regulations. Which of the following approaches best balances security objectives with regulatory compliance and ethical data handling? Option A. Ingest all raw logs into the SIEM and assume that the security team's general understanding of data privacy is sufficient to prevent misuse. Option B. Implement data masking or anonymization techniques on sensitive fields within the logs before they are ingested into the SIEM for analysis. Option C. Disable automated log ingestion and analysis for systems that generate logs containing sensitive PII, opting for manual review processes instead. Option D. Ingest all raw logs, including sensitive PII, into the SIEM and rely on access control lists within the SIEM to restrict who can view the sensitive data. The correct answer is B. Implement data masking or anonymization techniques on sensitive fields within the logs before they are ingested into the SIEM for analysis. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT security automation, specifically concerning data privacy and the responsible use of automated tools. The challenge lies in balancing the need for comprehensive security monitoring with the obligation to protect sensitive personal information, as mandated by regulations like the U.S.'s Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, if this were a healthcare context, or the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, for broader consumer data. The core conflict is between the potential for automated security solutions to inadvertently expose or misuse sensitive data and the imperative to maintain robust security posture. The correct approach prioritizes data minimization and anonymization before processing, aligning with the principle of least privilege and privacy by design. By redacting or anonymizing sensitive fields within logs before they are ingested by the SIEM for analysis, the organization adheres to regulatory requirements that mandate the protection of personally identifiable information, PI, or protected health information. 5. This proactive measure ensures that the automated security solution operates within legal and ethical boundaries, preventing unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive data. This reflects best professional practice by embedding privacy considerations into the automation workflow from the outset, thereby mitigating risks and fostering trust. An incorrect approach that involves ingesting raw, unredacted logs into the SIEM for analysis presents significant regulatory and ethical failures. Such an action would violate data privacy regulations by exposing sensitive information to a broader set of individuals or systems that may not have a legitimate need to access it. This increases the risk of data breaches and non-compliance, potentially leading to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling automated log analysis for sensitive systems altogether, creates a security blind spot. This failure to adequately monitor critical systems undermines the organization's security posture and could lead to undetected threats, which is also a failure in due diligence and responsible security management. A third incorrect approach, relying solely on manual review of sensitive logs, is often impractical and prone to human error, increasing the likelihood of missed threats or accidental data exposure during the manual process, and failing to leverage the efficiency and consistency of automation. The professional reasoning process for navigating such dilemmas should involve a risk-based assessment. First, identify the sensitive data elements within the logs. Second, evaluate the potential impact of unauthorized access or disclosure of this data. Third, consult relevant regulatory frameworks and organizational policies to understand data protection obligations. Fourth, explore technical solutions for data anonymization, pseudonymization, or redaction that can be integrated into the automation workflow. Finally, implement and continuously monitor the chosen solution to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. This systematic approach ensures that security automation is implemented responsibly and ethically, safeguarding both the organization's assets and the privacy of individuals.